Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to be showing you 10 tips, tricks, and mechanics that every Albion Online player needs to know. Whether you are a complete beginner or an absolute veteran who's played the game from the start, I guarantee you will learn something from this video. Journeying back is an incredibly helpful feature to help you get back to town really quickly. And did you know that there are two ways that you can significantly reduce the cost of journeying back? First up is simply understanding how the cost of journey back is calculated. The cost of journeying back is mainly determined by two things: how many zones you are away from where you started, and the item value of all the items you're wearing and in your inventory. Item value refers to a stat on an item called item value, not the general item value that you get from, say, the estimated market price. Now, the item value stat will typically raise as you get more expensive, higher tier items. So for example, a tier 4 longbow will have a much lower item value stat than a tier 8 longbow. However, there are some exceptions. Most notably are maps. Maps have a very high item value compared to the cost on the market, meaning it's sometimes even better just to trash a map before you journey back. The second way to reduce your journey back cost is an interesting feature, we'll call it, of the Black Zone. So if you enter the Black Zone from a portal city, when you journey back, it should calculate the cost based on how far away you are from the portal city that you left from. However, this isn't how it works. It actually calculates the cost from how far you are away from the closest portal city. So you can see here, I've left from the Thetford portal city and traveled all the way to Bridgewatch. If I journey back from this zone, it cost me around 8,000 silver. However, if I zone to the southeast, which is farther away from Thetford, where I started, but closer to Bridgewatch, the price of my journey back actually gets reduced. So if you're deep in the Black Zone, if you want to journey back, just head to the closest portal city and your journey back cost will be reduced significantly. Before we get into this tip, did you know that there's only one person who watches my videos that isn't subscribed? So if that's you, do you want to, maybe help me out or something and hit that sub button? Thanks. There is a very well-kept secret that some players in Albion keep to themselves because it offers a pretty big advantage. You can zone and then have no cooldowns. Normally when you zone into a new zone, assuming it's a lethal zone like red or black, you will have 15-second base cooldowns on all abilities. However, if you remove an item that you are wearing before you zone and then re-equip it after you zone, you can bypass that global 15 seconds and reduce it to whatever its normal cooldown would be. So you can see here, I unequip all of my gear, zone into the underway, re-equip it, and all of my weapon abilities are up right away because there's no enemy near, and all of my armor abilities are on a 5-second cooldown like they normally would be if I'd been in that zone forever. This secret is most helpful in ganking situations, either when you're trying to chase the target to the next zone or when you're escaping from gankers into the next zone and you need, say, your boot cooldowns up as fast as possible. If you've played Albion for a while now, you know that being able to identify and see people at the edges of your screen as soon as possible is very, very important. However, one of the problems to quickly identifying players at the edge of your screen is simply the amount of UI that covers the edges of your screen. You have your health bar and stats in the top left, you have all the settings in the top right, in the bottom right you have the mini-map, and in the bottom left you often have the chat. There's just a lot going on at the edges of your screen, which can make it hard to see things and see players sneaking up on you from the edges. Thankfully, there is a setting to toggle on and off this extra UI fairly quickly. So if you go to the keybind settings, it's called recording mode, and what it does is it toggles off all of the UI except for things like names and health bars. Its default hotkey is Alt+J, but that's a little bit awkward to press, so I would suggest changing it to something that's fairly easy to press. Mine is on T, although obviously you can put it on whatever you find convenient. Personally, after I learned about this option, I constantly use it while I'm playing. I'm constantly switching between this recording mode and not having it. Basically, the only time I actually have the rest of my UI available is when I need to see like my cooldowns or my mini-map or something like that. Otherwise, in most situations, I usually actually have recording mode on just for increased visibility, especially when you're doing some dangerous activity in some lethal zone, like gathering, for example. It really helps see people sneaking up on you from the edges of your screen. Killing mobs in the open world can be dangerous for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest ones is that it can be really hard to get on your mount quickly when you have mobs hitting you. Anytime you take damage while you're trying to mount up, it will cancel that mounting up animation and leave you in a vulnerable position. However, there are actually a lot of items in Albion that can completely negate damage for a short period of time, allowing you to mount up even while being attacked. If you cast any immunity to damage on yourself or a shield on yourself and then try to mount up, that immunity or shield will eat the damage of the attacks and allow you to mount up through taking damage. Some notable examples of items that can help you do this are Guardian Helmet, Cleric Robe, Oathkeeper's E ability, and Divine Staff's E ability. Another note on top of this is that since a lot of shields are actually AoE or target somebody else, you can actually help your friends mount up as well too with this tech. Quick tip here for you, did you know that when you're using the market and you shift click any item, it will automatically search for that item's name in the search bar of the market? It is quite helpful when doing things like restocking on consumables. Just keep in mind that when you do this, all it really does is automatically type exact item's name into the search bar, and so you won't get any details on like the quality or the enchantment, and it can sometimes pull up the wrong items if it has a very similar name to something else, like poison potions versus minor poison potions. On the topic of clicking items, you ever see those people that like link an item in the chat? You can do that by control clicking any item with the chat open. Now, similar to our last tip, this doesn't have all the information stored in it, so it won't have quality is a big one, so a masterpiece and a normal quality of the item will look exactly the same when you link it in the chat like this, but it's still a great way to communicate about items. Furthermore, if you want to take this to the next level and link items that you don't actually have on you, when you're control clicking an item with the chat open like that, basically what it's doing is it's just typing in a specific item code into the chat, which automatically transforms it into that little icon that you can click. So what you can do is if you copy paste that item, it will actually copy paste the text, and you can sort of see what the item code looks like in terms of the words, allowing you to make any item as long as you know its name. So you can see here, I can put a mammoth calf in the chat without actually having a mammoth calf on me. It is wonderful for trolling people. If you play without premium, you know that the market tax is absurd. It cuts into your profits so much, especially when you do not have premium. However, there is a way to bypass this and get the premium tax rates even when you do not have premium on your account. How do you do this? You simply make a new character, go through the tutorial, grab the 3 days of premium, and then trade any items you want to sell to that character and sell them on the market with that character, and then transfer all the silver you make back to your original character. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, but if you're doing very large orders and selling lots of things at once, it's definitely worth your time, as the tutorial only takes about 15 minutes. Just some notes to make this more efficient. After you complete the tutorial, you can just suicide in the starter town and it will respawn you at the royal city that's closest to it, and then you can use something like a personal island or a guild island and give permission to that new character to open the chests and stuff on it and just transfer items that way. If you've played Albion for a while, you know that when you are getting ganked, if you get dismounted, you're basically dead 100% of the time. The vast majority of the way that you survive getting ganked or survive out in the black zones is to never get dismounted. Because of this, having a very tanky mount is highly desirable. Mount tankiness is mostly decided just by the base stats of the mounts, like how much health they have and if they have any armor or magic resist. However, there is a way to make any mount significantly tankier. When you're riding your mount, you're actually affected by the passives and some of the stats of the gear that you're wearing. So for example, if you are running on a mount with an ability built into it and you wear all other armor across the board with cooldown passives and all of that, that mount's ability will actually be a shorter cooldown. More importantly though, the armor and magic resist attached to specifically your chest piece affects how much damage your mount takes while you're mounted. So when you're mounted running around, if you are wearing a cloth chest piece, you'll usually actually take more damage than if you are wearing a plate chest piece. You can see here this mob actually does more damage to me when I'm running a 7.1 cleric robe versus a flat 4 guardian armor. Because even despite being much lower IP, the guardian armor being plate armor has higher armor stat on it. So if you're ever transporting or just running around and want to make sure it's hard to dismount yourself, just put on a plate armor, even if it's just a really cheap one, as it will make you tankier on your mount and harder to dismount. Similarly, never ever go naked on a mount if you're worried about being dismounted. Even just a flat 4 set of plate armor will make you significantly harder to dismount. When you are running around dismounted, maybe in the middle of a fight or setting up for one, you cannot switch any abilities on your armor or switch any pieces of armor without getting global 10-second cooldowns on all of your stuff. However, this does not apply to food and potions. As long as you're not actively in combat, you can freely swap between any food and potions without putting yourself in that 10-second cooldowns. Just some notes on this. First, it does not work if you have a normal food and then an enchanted food of the same type, because it will try to stack them instead of switching them. And then also, if you have none left, so if that slot is empty, either your potions or your food, you cannot equip a food or a potion onto an empty slot without getting those 10-second cooldowns. Some abilities in the game cast their damage, and then the damage actually comes later. Most notably is the one-handed curse staff. If you are casting an ability like this, you should know that any damage amplification that you have should be casted when you cast the spell and not when it's about to do its damage. So for example, Cleric Robe gives you a damage buff while it's active, however only lasts 3 seconds. If you cast this Cleric Robe right before the skull pops and get that damage boost, then it won't actually increase the damage that the skull does. However, if you cast the Cleric Robe as you're casting that E ability, even though it expires by the time the skull pops, it will still get that bonus damage. Same goes for any other effect that boosts the amount of damage that you do, like Royal Sandals. Okay, and those are 10 things that every Albion Online player should know. I hope you learned something in this video. I'd be surprised if you didn't, and if you did, make sure to leave a like and do all the other stuff you do to YouTube videos, and I will see you in the next one.